Welcome to the Empower, Solve, Protect podcast, hosted by David Levine, founder and CEO of Go West IT. Go West IT guides businesses to opportunity while protecting them from harm on the digital frontier. The Empower, Solve, Protect podcast explores digital transformation strategies and journeys of successful entrepreneurs and business leaders.
Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you to another episode of Empower, Solve, Protect, and I'm very honored to have Dana Sednek with me today. Dana is has a long career and a very impressive career of helping businesses and particularly engaging people in businesses. I'm going to do a little reading here because she's got such a fantastic resume. In 2020, she designed and developed and pitched and implemented a world-class leading technology stack that won a Brandon Hall Gold Award for Best Advance in Learning Tech Implementation. That's a long title, and that's very impressive. She's also worked at some very large organizations leading online digital learning, such as Intuit, and she's been involved with coaching leaders and helping leaders for a very long time. So I'm honored that she would spend the time visiting with us today, and I'm really excited about the conversation. Dana, thanks for being here.
Thanks, David. It's great to be here.
All right. Well, I like to start these off by kind of finding out how you got here. You've got an impressive career. You can expand or contrast as much as you'd like on how you got here, but maybe give us a quick picture of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, it's funny. My career is a little bit flip-flopped from others. I started in the same place that former CEOs and ex-lawyers and judges all kind of went to in their third career. So I actually started out in my career wanting to be a divorce mediator. And interesting, not related to tech exactly, but very much related to the intermediary between people, right? And how to get people to make decisions. I thought it was so interesting, this whole mediation process where you get all the people to make the decisions and make agreements with each other without some third party doing it, right? Like bringing everybody to the table and then being able to kind of hash it out and agree to go. And so along my journey in going into the world of work, I realized that there is a ton of opportunity to be able to mediate and kind of set people around the table when it comes to stakeholder management. And I have worked kind of in tech and in video collaboration before it became the thing that we do all the time. I remember saying a lot to clients when talking about their thinking about going virtual for any kind of learning or collaboration or meeting needs. I'd always say, oh, hey, you know what? I am here to help I'm here to help you figure out how you can do your best work when you can't be in the same room with one another. And before, this fabulous time of COVID that was very weird, but very transformative. People would be like, I don't understand. Why wouldn't you be in the same room with one another if you have something very important to do? And so now what has been so great is that when I say, I hope you do your best work when you can't be in the same room with one another, especially when it comes to big transformations that are happening, people are like, oh, yeah, I get it. Help us figure out how to come to the table, make agreements with one another that are our own agreements, and kind of be able to move forward so that we can advance to where we want to go. So my journey kind of throughout all of organizations and things, that's the red thread, is bringing all the people who care about the thing that they want to do together to align on doing the thing.
Yeah, that's a great story. I didn't know about your desire to be a divorce mediator. I also don't know anybody who starts out thinking they want to go into that.
I know.
I thought I wanted to be a lawyer when I was in school. I was very fortunate to work for a law firm. They gave me an opportunity, and it gave me great insight to what that field was about. And I decided I didn't want to be an attorney. So I get that journeys kind of take people through different paths, and it's interesting how you got there. I think it's also really interesting that you were way ahead of the curve on remote engagement. And how fortuitous, because your skill set is highly desirable now, and you've kind of been where a lot of companies have gone now just because they had to go very quickly. I think a lot of businesses too are still figuring it out. There's a lot of figuring out to be done, a lot of grappling now. Now that the dust has settled from the pandemic a little bit, people are still trying to figure out what works well, what doesn't work well, and how are we going to be our best moving forward.
Yeah, David, it's really interesting. We thought that was temporary, right? Where we're like, okay, let's all just kind of figure it out and make our way until we can get ourselves back in the office. But as we progress through the time being virtual, we kind of realized, well, wait a second, this is actually sometimes can be pretty great. We miss being, in the room with one another, but it seems that our kind of new era or new world of work is going to be some mix of both, right? This hybrid space where you might have some people in the room together, and other individuals calling in remotely. And it's been such an interesting transition, especially when it comes to trying to figure it out, right? I think a lot of companies jumped right in and they're like, all right, we're just going to do it, and they didn't take the time or space to really think and be intentional about it. One of the biggest things that I actually consult with on clients who are looking to do this kind of transformation, or who are thinking about it, is really to stop thinking about trying to replicate the office. So, a lot of times we get into a room and we're like, okay, well, how would we do this if we were in a conference room? Let's, get somebody to come up to the whiteboard and take notes, or this is what it's going to look like. And we forget about all the cool things that we can do now with the digital tools that we have available to us. So often one of my biggest recommendations is think first digitally and then bring it back into the office, instead of, the flip of trying to replicate the office digitally.
That's a great comment. I'm going to inject a little of our experience there. Go West and many of our customers were early adopters of Teams. And this was way before it was a necessity to work effectively remotely. But Teams is much more than just how we're using it right now for a meeting, and we're recording that meeting. But there's a ton of tools that are baked in, and then you could add on. But is it a transition to have people understand how to leverage that technology. And sometimes pieces just happen. And this will be maybe a segue into how we talk a little bit about our next topic here. But often it requires some real thought and planning and engagement to get people to really understand the tools, use the tools the same way. Because Teams, Zoom, all of those platforms are vast. And boy, if you just open it up and say, here, use this, you get however many people you've got in the room all using it differently. So I always ask, what does digital transformation mean to you? And I ask that question because I get just about as many answers as I had talked to people. However many people I talk to, I get that many answers. Can you tell me what digital transformation means to you?
Sure. Yeah, digital transformation is an interesting word, right? Like, I actually think that that it encapsulates the blend of both the people and the technology. In order to transform, you can't just turn the technology on. It's easy to get a tenant of Teams up, and but it's really difficult to get everybody using it and knowing about how to use it, kind of along the boat. So when I think about digital transformation, I think about two things, right? For organizations, they've realized that they need to turn the ship, or they need to jump into another ship. And in order to do those things, all of that is very much about people. The ship or the technology is there, but it's all about how are we going to help our ship boards, right? All the people who are on the ship with us. How are we going to help our employees really kind of move into this and then learn how to work together in this new way of working, or field of working, or business structure, right? Like for every organization, their digital transformation looks a little bit different because it's based on a different vision for their future. However, all of it, every organization has to figure out how to either move the ship or learn to work in a new ship. And that's what the people side is all about. that's the stuff that is the hardest work. So to me, digital transformation means making sure that you're attending to both.
I think that's a very important insight. So digital without the human element, you really can't have transformation. You just have digital. You've got it. The transformation
Yep.
part is about bringing people along or letting them leverage the technology. Go West IT implements a lot of technology for customers, or we help with implementing platforms that they've chosen. And it's not uncommon to have someone come to us and say, hey, we tried that and it didn't work. Or it's not uncommon for a business to say, we want to tackle a piece of technology. We get in and help stand that up, but for whatever reason, it falls flat. And my experience is that the lack of forethought or planning for user adoption is usually a really important factor as to why something may have fallen short of expectations or doesn't get implemented and goes by the wayside anyway. Since you've done so much consulting with businesses about digital transformation, I'll put this in the form of a question. What can you tell me about executive sponsorship or leader sponsorship of initiatives, and the kind of the mentality that's needed to think about change adoption and really getting people enrolled in the process? Is that something you talk with people about?
Yes, and it's actually what I went through when I won the Brandon Holt Gold Award, the best implementation of innovation learning technology, the long titled award. That was a 3 to 5 year kind of project in progress.
Wow.
In fact, so it was with my clients at first, Intuit, and as often as I do, sometimes I go internally and work for some of my clients, and then I spend time externally. And when I started my work with Intuit, we were reimagining their global onboarding experience. So a great opportunity in the front end to be able to kind of create culture and design the way that you say how you're going to show up for employees, and then that's the thing that you need to do when it comes to kind of creating that onboarding experience from culture. And when I started and we were thinking about it, the internal technology that we had available to us was just the lonely LMS, the learning management system. And so if we wanted to put an explainer video out, or like a 3-minute video of Intuit CEO at the time, Brad Smith, giving a welcome to new employees via email, this couldn't be done. We actually we tried to get it done, and the only way to get it done would be to upload it into a course inside of the LMS, get somebody to log it. Then you have to like click to go register, and then you have to click to go confirm your registration. Then you have to click to go enroll in it, and then you have to enroll. It took longer to get to the video than it would be to even watch the video, right?
Yeah, not a great first day.
Not a great first day, but also not a great way to be able to communicate to your employees fast, right? Rapidly, in a way that that you could quickly get information out and then know that people have viewed it or seen it, right? And so that was the beginning of our transformational journey, and in order to enroll our senior executives, one of the things that happened was we had some leadership turnover. I talk about two things with my clients, that you've got to have both readiness and ripeness for the change. So readiness is, do we have all of the things that are necessary to be able to turn the boat or jump the boat? Right, because it's both. And do we have the ripe culture or support or executive ear that is going to allow us to be able to both make the case and enroll our sponsorship, so that we're not doing it alone and we're not doing it quietly, and we have kind of everybody around us who needs to help us do all of the moving or the turning. And so in this example at Intuit, I had both the newly appointed chief HR officer and the chief IT officer, who was feeling a lot of pain with this previous LMS that I was talking about, the learning management system. It was so painful for all employees' experiences, and that became the opportunity, the ripe fruit from which to then say, well, hold on, the first request that they gave to us was, we need a new learning management system. This was the opportunity to be able to make the case and demonstrate what we actually needed was a 3-layer tech stack that enabled employee learning kind of within and through the job. And so we pitched this 3-layer tech stack that also had an LMS in it. We gave them 3 options, and ultimately they chose the aspirational one, the one that helps them transform the way that they help leaders and learners at Intuit learn and grow. And we went to implement it. We said, you know what, we could probably do it in a year. They said, well, we've never done anything like this, and we've never done anything like this in a year. Let's make sure that we've got all the resources necessary to do it. And so we were able to get it implemented right away, like within the year. And luckily we did, because what is it? When was it? March 19th, May 19th. That was when COVID hit and everybody had to work from home immediately. And one of the first things that we had to do was figure out a way to communicate with our employees about how to be a great employee when you work from home. And so our technology enabled, it wasn't even rolled out yet, right? Like, our technology enabled us to be able to send a video, which was a 3-minute video about 3 tips for how to work from home and take care of yourself at the same time. And then 72 hours later, we were able to set up what we call learning pathways, 5 learning pathways that were brand new, that were crowdsourced from other Intuit remote employees who would help all of these new remote employees learn how to work when you're not in the same room with one another. And so it was pretty amazing in terms of that digital transformation of from where we started in the 5 years that I worked with them to the end when we were able to implement this solution. And the longest part of that was building the case, the readiness and the capability. And then the ripeness is continuing to listen and find that place where you can kind of pluck your supporters and your stakeholders to kind of enroll them into the vision of the thing that you're looking for or looking to do. Where is the pain? Where is the problem? And how might you be able to expand that as an opportunity to enable transformation? So yes, that's the long road, but it also is the most important.
It is. You said a bunch of really important pieces there and some interesting things. You talked about the aspirational goals and objectives, and I think that's important when it comes to getting executive leadership sponsorship. You have to kind of tie the aspirational goals of maybe the LMS or the communication platform to the aspirational goals of the organization, and create a way for people to understand how they're connected. And sometimes, the initiatives that are tackled from a technology standpoint can be a little bit mundane, maybe not that exciting from a big aspirational standpoint, but important nonetheless. If I could take it down of maybe 4 or 5 layers, we're often talking to businesses about cybersecurity, and something that's hard to get people excited about is implementing password managers. And yet it is so important for companies to really take simple things like that seriously, and it's part of the big picture. If we want to be trusted by our customers, if we want our employees to trust that we're putting the right things in place, it's important even for a leader to understand that that's one piece that absolutely, is part of the bigger picture. And I can't tell you how many password manager implementations have fallen flat because the CEO said everybody else needs to use it, but I've got my own system. So they've got to really understand why we're doing this and get on board. That's a really small example for something with a much shorter timeline than the project you talked about, but important nonetheless for people to be engaged and understand why why leaders need to really lead in those situations.
Yeah, I love that example actually, because it is one place where you may think it's mundane, but if you can build the bigger picture or the greater picture behind why we need to do this, super interesting, right? Like Microsoft itself moved from investing all of their time, resources, and energy in building the solutions for people to be able to use the Teams and the Word and the PowerPoint and the SharePoint and all of these things, and then started to invest in security and keeping all of the documents and the tools and the communications and all of these things safe, because it's actually a recognition that it's like this indicator that you've moved to the new era of work. You've moved to working digitally, because that is a critical part of working digitally, is keeping all of our digital assets safe. So if you can tie it to that greater vision, then people can get more on board with it, of like, oh, okay, it's not just a dang thing that we have to do for the whatever thing. Like, I'm here to help our company transform because we're going to look and do this thing. This is one part of my role in it. And look, everybody else is there too. This is the boat we're jumping on.
Yeah, it ties the tactical to the strategic, and it's important, and it gets overlooked a lot of times. So very interesting. You've consulted with lots of companies, and you've been kind of the person in charge of managing that engagement and that learning. Can you tell me, maybe if we take it down from the leadership level, at the level where you've got employees who show up and they've got a job to do and they just want to get their job done, what challenges have you faced trying to get employees who have a job to do focused on a bigger picture objective, and how have you coached businesses on maybe overcoming something like that, overcoming apathy or any pushback on really getting engaged with a project?
Oh gosh, I love this. This is actually a great question, and one of the ways that I do this is by enrolling the people who are going to be directly affected by the change, to be able to come in early, help test it out, and help poke holes in it. Because the interesting part about any change, especially if it is impacting a employee's kind of way of work, is that they know the most about the way that they work today, and they know what gets in the way. So they're going to help you identify some of those roadblocks that you're going to encounter when it comes to implementation. And they're going to be the first ones to poke holes at whatever you think the aspiration is of it. And my goodness, if you can get those folks both enabled and enrolled to say, oh, well, wait a second. Yeah, that would be a better approach. I would love it if we could do that. I tested it and this didn't work, but if we could fix this thing, then yes, that would make my life tremendously better. That actually works better than what I thought, right? Like, getting them through the experience of that thing is like tantamount, number one. Number two, there is some catharsis that is required. You have to kind of help employees let go of the old way. When we implemented a new 3-layer tech stack instead of the LMS, when we started talking about it, our employees actually would say, oh, is the LMS going away? Is the LMS going away? Oh, is the LMS going away? And we realized, oh my gosh, we need to have a going away party for the LMS. So we threw a virtual party for our LMS, and the people who are our administrators got to write like thank you, dear John kind of letters of like, we'll miss you, but we also won't. And so that helped kind of create this celebration in being able to kind of turn on new. So don't discount the opportunity to build catharsis in a way that kind of opens the door for the future, and enroll those people who might be your biggest naysayers. Because if you can flip them, then everybody else will come along.
Oh, I love that. Some very important things you said there about getting people on board. And I think talking about what you're leaving behind really does open up the possibilities for what you might do moving forward. Yeah. And that's very powerful. And so I'm gonna wrap it up with that. I want to thank you very much for joining me today. I want to tell people, if you want to find out more about Dana, you can go to danasednek.com, DANASEDNEK.com. And phenomenal resource. It's been a pleasure visiting with you. Thanks for spending the time today, Dana.
Thank you, David. This was great.
If you enjoyed this episode of Empower, Solve, Protect, please subscribe, like, and tell a friend. The Empower, Solve, Protect podcast is sponsored by Go West IT, your expert guide to the digital frontier.